Okay, tell me a little bit about yourself.
All right, well, my name is Caitlin Roberts, and I am currently a junior at Missouri State,
Okay.
and I'm studying child and family development with a child life emphasis. I hope to graduate in May of 2016 after my internship. And so things that I've done throughout child life, I've been a nanny for 3 years for 2 kids that are now 7 and 10, I believe, and I have them 40 hours a week during the summers, and then I've worked at a dog kennel before, so that's a little bit different than child life, but it's some different experience. And then I volunteer at Cox in Springfield and also Rankin Jordan in Maryland Heights. And then I also have lab opportunities at Cox and Health, so I practice my child life skills there after class. So I'll go to class first, and then afterward I'll go to the hospital. So it's kind of a nice way to figure those things out. And then I also am this summer going to South Africa for my practicum, and so we'll work at a hospital there. And then I also have a second practicum, which is for Camp Courage, and it's a camp for children aged 6 to 15 that live with sickle cell disease. So those are just some things that I've done throughout the years within child life.
Good. Usually that's a question. Tell me about your relevant work experience. So,
Okay.
But that's fine to
Okay.
just say that. What appeals to you about taking care of sick children?
Well, I've always known that I wanted to work with children in some way or another. I've had opportunities to work with well children through my nanny and babysitting and stuff like that. But I think just having the ability to help them in a different way is really rewarding to me. They need someone to take care of them. They need different things than well children, and just the idea of being able to help them in more ways than just taking care of them in a normal sense, that really appeals to me and gets me really excited about child life.
Good. What do you feel are the primary roles and responsibilities of a child life specialist?
I believe that first they're an advocate for the child and their family, so they kind of are that liaison and person who really advocates for them in the hospital between staff and other members of the hospital. And then I also feel like they're just there to normalize the situation and for play. That's one of, I feel like, the core things that we learn about in practice are making sure that they are living and being as normal as possible in the hospital. So being able to play and give them those resources is really important.
Good. What do you find to be the most challenging or interesting part of working with children in the hospital, and how are you going to deal with it?
I think the most challenging and interesting part was just dealing with the families. You're in the hospital, you're not in your normal environment, and people can act out in different ways because of what's going on. And so sometimes taking a step back and realizing if a family is yelling at you or not very comfortable with you being in the room, that it might not be necessarily geared towards you. And so you have to kind of step back and be okay, they're not necessarily mad at me, they're just frustrated with what's going on in the hospital. And so I think just realizing that and separating myself from that situation is how I would figure out and deal with it.
How do you think your closest friends would describe you and your personality?
I think that they would describe me as loyal and dedicated to things that I do, because they know if I have a task to complete, I won't go. I mean, I might, but I will try and do my homework and all the things I have to get done first before I go and cancel my plans and go out with them or something. And I also think they would say I have a good sense of humor, because I'm not very serious a lot of the time. I like to laugh and have fun and things like that.
Good. What's an example of an accomplishment you have achieved?
Well, an accomplishment that I achieved in the hospital was during one of my lab opportunities at Cox, I worked with a patient who had just had his appendix taken out, and no one could get him to walk around. He really needed to get up and out of his bed, and he was just, refusing from everyone. Anything they brought in, he was just not interested in. And I went in and had the idea, I'm just going to get him to sit up. I'm going to get him to just use his arms, and then I'll see where it goes. So I brought in paint and toy cars, and so I had him put paint on the piece of paper and like roll the colors through it, and that just got his like arms moving and instead of laying flat. And we did that for probably like 20 minutes, and he was so into it. And so I said, you know what, like if we go to the playroom, I can get out bigger colors and bigger pieces of paper. And he was like, okay. And so I was like, do you want to go to the playroom with me? And he was like, yeah. And he needed help getting out of the bed, but he walked himself to the playroom and sat in his chair. And everyone that came in was like, how did you get him out? And I was like, I just played with him. Like, it really wasn't that hard. So that was probably one of my first and, like, I feel like biggest things that I accomplished while in my lab at Cox.
Good. How do you define success?
I define success as really just being happy in what you're doing, and like if you go to work every day and you're not having a good time and you don't enjoy it, you're really not being, I feel like, successful. Like when you go and you try your hardest to make a difference and just love what you're doing, I feel like that really is successful in doing what you're doing.
Okay, so this is a little bit longer of a question, and I'll help you get to the next part. Okay. One of your roles as a specialist is to help distract children during medical procedures. What item would you select for the following age groups? An infant, preschooler, age schooler, and adolescent. Why did you pick this, and how would you utilize the item? So, start with infant.
Okay. If I was going in to distract an infant during a medical procedure, I would bring in, a mobile or, something that lit up because they're in the sensory motor stage of development. And that is really important for them to, get the stimulation from the lights and the sound. So something like a mobile that could play music and line up at the same time, something for them to look at. And then is the next one?
Preschooler?
Preschool. For a preschooler, I would bring in maybe a book or something because they're really wanting to learn new things and master those new accomplishment and goals. So bringing in a book or an I Spy book or something like that, helping them find those things and read if there's little words on them, helping them kind of read those words, things like that, since they're trying to, master new things.
Age schooler.
Age schooler. Okay.
School ager.
School age? Yeah, I think it should be school ager.
It is.
Okay.
School ager.
Okay. For a school age, I would probably bring in some medical play. So I would bring in, things from the hospital that they're going to be seeing, like the tongue depressors, the cotton balls, and the maybe even a syringe. And we could do an activity with that. I know I've done syringe painting before, so using just a piece of paper and some paint and the syringes that they're going to be seeing while they're there to kind of get them comfortable with the equipment and distract them at the same time. I think that's what I would bring in for them.
Good. And last is an adolescent.
Okay, for an adolescent, I would probably, first I would probably, build some rapport and ask them things that they like to do. And I know a lot of the time in the hospital, teenage boys are like, I like to play video games. Right. So if that's something they like, I could bring in, the iPad or the video game system. And then for the girls, a lot of them just like to paint nails or, read magazines and stuff like that. So I would just first, kind of, build that rapport with them and see the things that they would like to do, they like to do when they're not in the hospital. So that way I could kind of help normalize that and get them distracted from the procedure.
Good. Okay, last question. Why should a company or hospital hire you over other candidates?
Okay, I think that I should be hired for this position because I've had a really unique experience being in the hospitals during my lab time. Not all schools offer that, so I am able to implement and practice my skills that I've learned in the classroom setting, alongside learning them at the same time. Mm-hmm. And I also think that my experience in South Africa was really unique. I was able to go over there and get familiar with a whole new culture. I know here there's a wide variety of cultures and families, but it was really just being in their setting and working with them and also having to use limited resources because, you would go in and that you wouldn't have any toys to distract them with. You just have to talk to them and know how to work it with no resources. And then also my practicum at Camp Courage, it was really, I think that's really something that helps me stand out because I was working with one specific, group of kids. They all had sickle cell, and I had never worked with kids with sickle cell before, so I wasn't really sure what to expect and how to deal with them, but just living with them for 5 days at the camp was really an eye-opening experience, and I really learned a lot through that.
Good. Stop, pause, whatever. How'd you feel?
Good. Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously nervous, but I feel like I was able to think of things easier than I thought I would.
Yeah. It seems like you have a lot of good experience, and that came out.
Right. Okay, good.
Just like an accomplishment you achieved, it was awesome that you had that specific experience and not talking about your grades or project. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, some people, that's what they have to do because that's what they have. Yeah. But I think having your experiences and pulling from your experiences whenever you can. Mm-hmm. While we're kind of on that, what you would bring in, how you would distract them was all good. I think if you can be like, one time I did this with someone and it worked. Okay. To give that real life.
Yeah. That's a good thing. I didn't think of that.
You can, but I don't think that this was bad.
Right, okay.
Tell me about yourself. I usually say where you go to school, what year you are, or when you graduate, your major, and what you've done towards that major. Okay. You had all of those. So, good job on that. It was like...
I know, that's always a tough question because I'm like, do I talk about experiences? Because I know sometimes that's like a farther down question, so I didn't know if you should hit them like right away or if you, I don't know.
I think that it's okay to hit it right away. Yeah. Because it shows your dedication. Right. That it's not just your major in school, but I've also done this and this and this. Okay. The only thing that I would maybe leave out is the dog kennel, just because it's not relevant. Yeah. I would focus on the things that are going to get you the job. Right. Behavior-based questions. Have you heard of those?
Yes.
Okay. So employers ask behavior-based questions because the theory is that past behavior predicts future behavior. I'm 50-50 on that because I think that we learn something from every experience. So I don't think that we always do it the exact same. Right. But when answering those type of questions, which to give me an example of an accomplishment you've achieved, that can be kind of behavior-based. Other questions are, tell me about a time you disagreed with the manager or supervisor, and how did you handle it? Give me an example of conflict. How'd you handle it? Give me an example of a failure. Okay. So all those are behavior-based questions, and so they're wanting a very specific example. Right. So our suggestion is to answer it with the STAR approach. Okay. So you can kind of group the S and the T together, which is situation and task. So like if we're using the accomplishment, the situation and task was that there was this little boy, is that right? Okay. Yeah. He had just had his appendix taken out and no one could get him to walk. He just wouldn't and was refusing everything. Mm-hmm. Okay, A is action. Okay. So after everyone else tried, I went in to try. I took the paint and the cars. We played there. Once I got him interested in that, I asked him if he wanted to go to the playroom to do bigger trucks, cars, whatever. So that would be your action, like what you did about it. Right. The result is that you had to help him get out of bed, but he was able to walk there on his own, and from there he didn't refuse walking anymore. Right. Whatever it was. Yeah. So you see how it kind of forms your story? Yeah. You did it without knowing it, and that's kind of natural to do that. Mm-hmm. But if you're having problems, it can eliminate having to be like going back and forth. Like it just makes your storyline for you, kind of. Do you have any questions about any of this?
I don't think so.
Okay. So why should I hire you over other candidates? I think you did really good. Usually, it could be like, is there anything else we need to know about you? Right. Whatever. They could ask it in any way, but they're basically saying the same thing. Okay. They're kind of just giving you a chance to talk about anything that you haven't already talked about. Right. And you touched on it, but I think, like, because you kind of touched on it up here, but I think going into a little more detail and why that sets you apart is good. Okay. So just like in the about me, or the tell me about me, I can like touch on it, and then when they ask why, I just get into more details about it. Yeah. Okay. And you could have 3 interviews back to back to back, and they will not ask the same questions. Right, yeah. Or in the same order, or anything. Yeah. So, always just be prepared for it. And that's why I say I think it's fine to go ahead and say it and then tell me about yourself.
Okay.
Because you don't want to wait till the very end of the interview for them to know you went to South Africa.
Yeah, right.
Like, I think that's a pretty big deal. And they might not always ask about work experience.
Right.
Because that's not a question that's listed here.
Yeah,
so.
and it'll be on like my resume and stuff, so.
Right.
Okay.
How do you think your closest friends would describe you and your personality? You did good. I think that those are fine words to use. I would say why and how they're relevant to the job.
Okay. Right, okay.
So why is that a good thing?
Okay.
Even though I didn't say strengths or make it a good thing, but
right.
Obviously you wouldn't say bad things.
Right.
Okay, so let's do this before moving on. Caitlin?
Yes.
How do you spell it?
Kaitlyn.
And
Roberts.
And it is the 6th. Can't believe it's May.
I know. I cannot believe that finals are already next week.
Me either. I'm more glad than anything. It's okay. Okay, so we didn't handshake, so handshake. Okay. This is what I say. Don't be G.I. Joe. Don't be Barbie. You want to meet at the web. So if you're going for that, it just makes a strong, confident handshake. With your handshake, I think you would be a little more confident, have a little bit more
more
power. Yeah. And it would probably have been more natural up front, and that's when I usually do it. But when people have so much stuff that they're carrying, I'm just like,
I know. I feel like I take my whole life with me.
Yeah, everywhere I know. Your eye contact was fine. I didn't notice that it was distracting in any way.
Okay.
If every person that you sat across the table from is going to be different.
Right.
It's going to be easy, natural. It's going to be hard because they're doing something weird, whatever. If that happens, you can look at the tip of the nose of the hairline.
Okay.
Your eyes are in the general direction. They're not like out the window because if you were looking out the window, I would be able to tell that. But if you're in the general direction, you're good. Voice level, volume, clarity of speech. I think you did good. I think that you were talking really fast.
I always get that, yes.
I think that it's part of being nervous.
Right.
But I think if you know that and kind of just focus on articulating.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like you were slurring your words or anything or mumbling, but just something to watch.
Right.
I'll just write fast.
Okay. I think I've gotten that since I was little.
Yeah.
I know it's something that like I think about, but then when you're like in the moment, I don't realize it anymore.
Yeah. And the more practice you get with interviews, it'll be easier.
Right.
Facial expressions, body language, mannerisms, posture. Fine. One thing about posture, mannerisms, if you're sitting on the edge of the chair, don't move now.
Okay.
Because you're fine. And I don't even know how you were during the interview.
I don't even remember.
But if you're on the edge of your chair and not sitting back,
right.
it makes you seem more engaged.
Okay.
Like you're leaning
right.
forward and like you're engaged in the conversation. I didn't notice that it was bad.
Okay.
But that is something that you can think about.
Right. Okay.
Self-confidence, comfort level. You seemed really comfortable talking about your experiences. And that's good. Enthusiasm, interest was definitely there. Willingness to volunteer information, good. Completeness of answers, specific examples. Appropriateness of responses to questions. I'm going to circle strengths. That just means tell why.
Okay.
Overall, you did good. Would it help if I wrote the STAR approach? Do you have to write anything for this?
No.
Okay.
No.
So,
no.
Okay. I will give you that.
Thank you.